feel like it's important to be gracious with yourself because not every day is going to feel the same.
Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Infertility Only Podcast. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Monique Farouk, women health advocate, mom to one IVF miracle, and your host of Infertility ME Podcast. I appreciate you for being here, for tuning in, for downloading, for rocking with your girl, and sharing the space with me and our guests and our friends in the community. And today we have Julissa joining us, and she's going to be sharing her story thus far, her diagnosis, and some of the trials and tribulations she's gone through, and as well as her support events that she hosts online, which one will be coming up in the near future, probably November, December. She'll tell us about it more later on in this episode. So thank you, friend, again for being here. And thank you, Jaleesa, for being here with us and giving us your time today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's my pleasure, dear. It's my pleasure. Don't be nervous. I know it's late and had a long
Yeah.
week. Don't be nervous, though. You're doing great. You look great. Fantastic. So, Jaleesa, I just want to start by asking you how your mental health has been lately with being right in the middle of still trying to conceive and all the things that come along with that. And then we'll get into more of your diagnosis. How are you coping?
Yeah,
How you been coping lately?
that's a good question. I have days where I feel really good and days where I don't. And I'm also going through infertility, but I also had my miscarriage 2 years ago. And so I'm grieving my daughter and I'm also grieving like the fertility and um, going through IVF is like another grief for me because I never thought that I would be doing this or going through this. So I've been working really, really hard on my mental health. It's been like a main factor for me. I've been like working with therapists, doing yoga, Reiki, like a lot of stuff that I can incorporate because I want to be in a better mindset when I go into my next, IVF transfer.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm glad that you are doing those things because even in the midst of all this, I feel like those things help bring us balance and help us feel more grounded. And then also just help us, like you said, move through the emotional turmoil that can sometimes come up in our physical bodies. Like we get aches. Have you ever experienced like getting aches and pains after something really bad happens with the cycle, or the anxiety starts going crazy and it comes out physically, I feel sometimes too as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Yeah. And so I want to start at the beginning. So how did you and your spouse meet? How did that all happen?
So we met, so I'm actually from Connecticut. And so we met at this store, like a retail store, and he had been working there for a while, and I was supposedly like, a seasonal worker. I was like 19, I want to say. And we first just started off as friends. We are both into cars. We're like car enthusiasts, and so we both had the same exact car. Um, and he was asking around in the store, like, whose car is that? Whose car is that? And I'm like, that's my car. Like, who is this weird guy asking me whose car that is?
Right, right.
Um, and then I don't know, we just started off as really good friends, and then it turned into a relationship a few months after that. And we've been together. It'll be 11 years on the 24th.
Wow, that's a long time. You guys have weathered the
Yeah,
storm. You guys
yeah.
have been through it all. I mean, let's see. 11 years ago would have been what, 2013, 2014 ish? Something like
Well,
that,
maybe I
right?
have the math wrong, but we started going out 2011.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's see.
So maybe
That
12 years. It'll be 12 years, I think.
Yeah. Oh, check us
Yeah.
out doing the math. Oh my God, the math wasn't mathing for a
It
minute.
wasn't mathing.
It's all good. I do the same thing. I literally, because I met my husband in '09 and we got married
Mhm.
in December 2010. So I'm always like, every year I'm
Well, yeah,
like,
once.
I'm doing it one by one by one. I'm telling you, it's like after 10 years, listen,
You
it's been
know,
a minute. So that's all that matters. Well,
it feels
kudos to you
like
guys. Yeah.
it feels like half of my life, really.
Well, when you think about it, because I'm not exactly how old you are, but um, when you spend a vast majority of one period of life, like your 20s or something like with somebody into your mid, like when I met my husband, I was 25. I'll be 40 in October, so it's like I met him in the middle of it, and then I've been with him my entire 30. So it's like I kind of feel like it all just starts to run together after a while, quite honestly. But yeah, you do. It
Yeah.
does feel that way. Like you spend a lifetime with somebody when you've been with them for at least a decade. So I get it. Totally get it. So how long after you guys got married, actually, and or before you got married, whenever you had the discussion, how long did you guys wait to start trying, um, intentionally, I should say?
Yeah. So, full disclosure, we weren't using contraception after 2 years
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
being together. So that makes me like 21 or something. But it wasn't until so we got married in 2015. Or sorry, we got married in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the time where we're like really thinking about having children, and that moment we're really wondering why it's not working. Why are we
Right.
not pregnant? Why is it taking so long? And then I had like, you're married. It's like the day after you're married, people are already asking you, "Hey, when are you having kids?" And I'm like, "I've been married for like 20 seconds. Like, give me
Like,
a
come on.
second."
A whole minute, okay? Give me a long minute, maybe even an hour, okay?
Yeah.
Because, and then that was like right before COVID started happening, and it was like election season. Because I had Omar Jr. in 2017, January 2017, and so he was actually born on inaugural Friday that year, if you can believe
Mm.
it. But so there was a lot going on in the world. Like, who the hell, give me a second, give me a minute. I totally get it. I know our friends do too, listening and watching on the tube. So did you initially express your thoughts to your OBGYN, and then he or she recommended that you go see a fertility specialist? Or had you didn't have a diagnosis that you knew of, right? Prior to any of you got any time during your trying to conceive, like intentionally started?
No, I did like my yearly OB exams, but I didn't think anything was wrong with me. Um, a year after we got married, that's when I started doing the infertility like testing, where I went to actual infertility clinic and I got like everything checked, my tubes, my uterus, my ovaries, got everything checked. Um, and I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. And then they just kept, they just told us to just keep trying. And then it turned into 7 years of us still trying and still trying. And so once we moved here to Florida, I saw another IVF doctor and he did a sperm analysis on my husband. And that's when they diagnosed him with male factor infertility
Mm,
antibodies in his sperm.
oh, wow.
Which, I really wish they would have told us, like, 6 years ago. That would have been real nice.
Yeah. So when before you guys had moved to the East Coast, then they hadn't tested his sperm quality at the time.
So they tested his sperm when we were living in Connecticut. They tested his sperm, but they didn't test antibodies in his sperm. They tested, like the mobility and the this and the that, but they didn't test him specifically for antibodies. That's what they did when we moved here to Florida. And
I
then that's when
gotcha.
they told us he has 99% antibodies in his sperm.
Wow. Wow.
So that
Wow.
gives
I
us
know that was very
1%.
devastating. Yeah.
Yeah, it was shocking.
Mhm. Mhm. Very shocking, I'm sure. And he didn't recall anyone in his family having a similar issue, like a genetic thing going on or anything. I've heard some men say that maybe immediate family has had similar issues, but he didn't have anything going on like that.
So what I know about the antibodies, that I don't think it's genetic. It may be,
Mhm.
but for him, it wasn't genetic. It was like a
Okay.
traumatic event that occurred.
Gotcha.
Um, when he was a child. So,
Gotcha. Okay. I
um,
have heard of that. I didn't know what the correct term was, though. Okay, so it's called, so the traumatic nature of the injury causes the antibodies. Okay. All right. I'll look
yeah,
more into it too. Interesting.
yeah. It's just like basically like in layman's term, it just means that you have like your sperm is attacking your sperm, and then so they like
Mm.
cancel each other out, and so nothing works,
I
basically.
see. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so they're basically attacking one another. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wow. So devastating. And I want to go back to your miscarriage. You mentioned earlier that you endured 2 years ago, and give my condolences to you guys and my sympathies for that. I don't want to glance over that. And so at this point, I'm sure you guys needed a lot of time to process it and to figure out what you wanted to do and how you wanted to move forward. So, how long did you wait to go back or return to see about your options for the next steps?
So January 2021, that's when I did my first round of IVF, where we like got all the embryos and all that stuff, and I had my miscarriage in May of 2021. Um, and it took me really like almost a year to get blood work done, um, to see like what happened. You know, you have like that miscarriage panel, whatever it's called.
It's like a
So I got
blood
that
test,
done.
right?
Yeah, where they just test everything like that could have gone wrong, which I really feel like they should test that before you do IVF. It's not like you're paying $15,000 for no reason. But so yeah, it took me a year because you know, it was really hard just leaving my house. It was just really hard just thinking of like what the problem was going to be or why it happened. I just didn't want to feel anything really at the moment. So
Hmm.
then I got blood work done a year later, and then it turns out that I have antiphospholipid syndrome, which is a blood disorder. There are different types of antiphospholipid syndrome, and I couldn't say the name of the one that I have because it's like a long, complicated name. I couldn't tell you how to say it. But apparently, this blood disorder attacks, um, it causes blood clots in the placenta, leaving your
Mm.
fetus with not enough nutrients to survive. And
Mm.
so that's what they say could have caused my um, miscarriage. I also did have a fibroid while I was pregnant, and I sometimes feel like that really could have been the reason why I had a miscarriage. Um, but you know, the
Yeah.
world of miscarriages and stuff, it's a lot of guessing as to what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. I was trying to think of the correct word or terminology I could use to describe it while you were talking. It was coming to me, and it's almost like I feel like miscarriage is like this blanket term, but it's not the root cause of it all. Sort of like when you see the umbrella and there's all these branches under it, or a smaller umbrella, and it's like, okay, well, this is miscarriage. But then there's all this other ish underneath of it. That's really what the root cause and can explain further what happened. And unfortunately, moms and dads like you guys don't always get the answers that
Mm.
you're looking for. So, how did you feel getting the blood disorder diagnosis, despite knowing that fibroids also could have been a culprit or the combination of the two?
So I kind of learned all of this all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That I had that my doctor implanted an embryo knowing that I had a fibroid, and after doing some research, um, like I've been told that fibroids causes it takes a lot of nutrients as well, and it sucks up a lot of blood, and that's why it gets bigger and all that. And that could have been, you know, the source of it. And so, you know, I was very angry with my doctor. I was very angry with why did you do the implantation knowing that I had a fibroid? And well, he told me that it wasn't in the location where the implantation was, and I just feel like that's just not a good excuse. Like if you see something there, if you see an abnormality in your uterus, there shouldn't be, you shouldn't continue to implant. And then with the blood disorder, I'm just, like I said before, like, you should have tested for all of this stuff ahead of time. Don't assume that like, my blood is okay. Don't assume that, like, we're obviously doing IVF, we're doing infertility, like, services because we need, we haven't been able to get pregnant. We need your help and we need you to check for everything. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like very pissed off. And I
Mm-hmm.
think to this day, like, it's definitely caused a lot of medical trauma because it's like, how can I believe what you're saying is true? How can I believe you have the best interest for me?
Mm-hmm. Did it almost feel like a betrayal? Would you say it felt like a betrayal in a way too?
It just felt like lack of care, or like not trying hard enough, or like I wasn't worth the time. It just felt like a lot of different things. You know, like, come
Yeah.
on, you know why I'm here. Like, don't waste each other's time.
Yeah. I feel like they definitely should have encouraged getting that fibroid removed. I don't understand either, and I can
I
understand
totally
why you were
agree.
so frustrated and angry.
And it wasn't until, so I got it removed by my OB, and then a few months after, the OB didn't remove all of the fibroid. So then a few months
Mm,
after, then my IVF doctor went and removed the rest.
mm,
So that's why it took us almost 2 years to do a frozen embryo transfer, because you do the surgery and then you heal. And then I had another surgery and then I healed, and
mhm,
so it was just a lot of back and forth. And there were a lot of other factors too that led to, like, then I had hypothyroidism, and then I was
mhm,
extremely anemic, and so you got to fix all of those problems before you start, IVF. So
mhm, mhm.
it's been a
Yeah, it's a
long
ride.
ride.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
ride. It's a ride.
With the blood disorder, once you are pregnant, once you are definitely pregnant, and the procedure that they would do would be, I would have to do a low heparin injection, which is like an anticoagulant, like Lovenox.
Mm,
And you would
mhm,
take that on a daily basis. And that's
mhm.
supposed to help not, for your blood not to clot. And so you
Okay.
would take that every single day. And then I believe even after 3 months, you give birth. So you don't get any blood clots.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, especially if given a natural birth and sometimes being on the, laying down for long periods. Yeah, that makes total sense. I was just curious if it was something like an anticoagulant that would have to be performed or given or self medicating and such at home too for it. So that makes a lot of sense. So where are we now? I know you said offline that you are getting ready to prepare for possible new IVF cycle, and you have been taking care of your mental and spiritual health to prepare to heal and to just live life despite all of this. And so, was it hard making the decision to go back to seek treatment, more treatment, that is?
Yeah. Um, and I'm currently working with my therapist because I realized that I have been very busy with my life, not thinking about IVF, because I took like 3 months off of IVF. And
Mm-hmm.
I just like left it in the back of my head, and I just been focusing on like school and work and stuff. And so with IVF now, I realize that it's very triggering. It's a very triggering conversation for me. And I didn't realize that until my therapist brought it up. And she was like,
Mm-hmm.
"So, what do you think about like IVF in 2 months?" And I'm like, "Man, I totally forgot I was doing IVF in 2 months because I've been so busy with like everything else." And I like, I felt it in my body. Like, I started like getting hot, and like my mind
Mm,
started racing, and I was like, I get like this very anxious feeling in my body. Just a
mm-hmm.
reminder that I have to do IVF. The reminder of like taking those progesterone shots, I hate them so much. Like, just
Yeah.
knowing that I have to go through this process all over again. is very triggering, and I don't think, I don't know if I ever will, but I haven't been able to get to that mind space that I want to get. When I did my very first IVF transfer, I felt like this like naive, like beautiful butterfly, like just
Mm-hmm.
chilling, doing IVF, and now it's like this, I got a broken wing, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like really hard for me to just go into it hopeful and optimistic now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you speak about the anxiety that you feel when you start to think about all the shots, the medications, how your body also responds, hormonally to those things, which can increase anxiety and such. And so, what do you? I'll ask it like this: how do you believe you'll cope, or how are you working with your therapist moving into the holiday season too? Have you found that to be triggering times in the past?
Yeah, yeah. Holidays are triggering for me, and I did this. I recorded myself throughout the holidays last year
Mm-hmm.
during the day. So I think it was Christmas Day. I recorded myself, and I woke up okay. I woke up fine. And then later the day goes on, and I start thinking and I start processing, and then the day just gets worse and worse and worse. So holidays are not the best for me, but I'm just like, I even though I like have this difficult relationship with like manifestation and affirmations, it's the only thing that
Mm-hmm.
really keeps me going through the IVF cycle. And
Mm-hmm.
my therapist is making like this survival guide, like a IVF survival guide for me,
Mm-hmm.
so I can always like, pick up those self-care tips or pick up those resources that I need when I'm feeling anxious, when I know I need to ground myself, because I'm very self-aware of my body now and my thoughts. But there are times where I forget what to do and I forget to process my feelings. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you have been working towards being more consciously aware of how you're feeling in your body in a moment, right? Because for you, um, like many and unlike so many others, but at the same time, many people do relate to you in that they keep themselves busy. I was a busybody too. Like I was going to do something. I was not just going to sit there and do nothing and think about this most or one of the most depressing times of my life. So I understand and I get it. And so do you fear hmm I'll ask this too. Do you fear because they're talking about COVID again? I know you're in Florida. They move a little different down in Florida with the shutdowns and stuff like that. I have family
they
down
don't
there
move at all.
and they don't do nothing, okay? So I was just wondering, do you fear moving into IVF again, and then the possibility of COVID coming? Did you get COVID the first time that came around?
I did. Yeah.
I did too. Yeah, we did last summer. It took us a long time to get it, but we got it. But do you fear moving into IVF as well with COVID and the resurgence of well, not resurgence, but the whatever the hell this variant is called? What is it called? Delta? Yeah, Delta
I
coming
don't
in,
know.
and yeah, I don't even know what the new one is called, but they're telling us to get the shot though, right? But yeah, that's another story for a different day. Do you fear going into IVF though, and having to worry about that extra layer of health issues that's running rampant right now, along with all the other things too?
Honestly, I feel like with all of my trauma, the last thing I thought of was
Mm-hmm.
COVID. Really, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking more like I was very suicidal with birth control. Am I going to be suicidal again?
Were
I
you
was, yeah.
okay?
And I'm thinking like these progesterone shots, like my butt was tore up. I'm thinking more about like how can I
Mm,
better do these injections?
mm-hmm.
I'm thinking more of like IVF stuff. Because
Mm-hmm.
so we did IVF January 2021, which was like prime COVID time. And, we were like literally wearing masks. And I got COVID October 2020,
Mm-hmm.
November-ish 2020. Um, and I was like kind of sort of I had really bad. I was my COVID was so bad. I was like almost getting
Mm,
over it, and then and then we're doing IVF, and because I already had it at that time. I guess I wasn't that worried because I was that time where they were like, yeah, you could like have COVID for like, and you won't get it for like 6 months or something like that. They were
mm-hmm,
saying back
mm-hmm.
then. So I wasn't worried about that. And now that you bring it up, it's still not something that worries me because I still feel like there's like a long laundry list of things that can
Other
go wrong,
things.
like
Yeah.
like my uterine lining, like there's just like a laundry list of, and I focus more like that stuff, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
instead of the COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. I only mentioned it because I had saw a commercial and was reading articles earlier about it, and they were talking about women who are might be in early pregnancy or might be already pregnant. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm thinking about everybody in the community. Like, here we go, and F again. Hopefully, it won't be as bad as the last time, and that things can precautionary measures can be taken. But and when do you guys hope to start your next treatment cycle? Is it later on this year or the beginning of the year?
Supposed to be next month. I started like the birth control process, and
Okay.
then I believe the transfer will be in November.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I
Well, I
hope
have
to
my
be
fingers
pregnant
crossed for you.
by
Yeah.
Christmas. I hope to have my Christmas miracle. Like when I went on the walk this morning and I was just thinking about IVF, and I was like, well, I just hope I get my Christmas miracle. That's all I
Mhm.
really want.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you find helping you with through emotionally, besides your therapist and all the things that you do for your well being, with the help of professionals? Do you find that staying busy with work and school also kind of like helps you cope with, again, not having to think about trying to conceive all the time and reminding you of your medical conditions and your husband's medical condition and such too? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Um, I'm going to school to be a social worker because I want to be a licensed therapist,
Okay.
and I'm learning a lot about like reflective listening and like awareness and mental health, self care, support, resources, a lot of stuff. And so I think that's where I've been focusing on because I like want to make the world a better place. I want to help like
Mhm.
all these moms that have better grieving and all these moms doing IVF and all these things. So I feel like with my experience, with everything that I've been through, I sort of like opened a book and I'm starting like just focus on how to support others, how to be there for everyone else. That I'm learning a lot about myself, and I'm a completely different person than I was before
Mhm.
my daughter passed away. And I'm kind of I'm grateful for who I am now, and it's just been helpful for me to be able to connect better with people.
Mhm. Mhm. I don't know why I didn't ask this earlier, but how far along were you when you lost her?
I was 5 months.
5 months. Oh wow. Oh man. Yeah. Wow. Had you been in the hospital in preterm labor or anything prior to her actual giving birth and
No,
having to say your farewell to
I
her?
went to an appointment, like a routine checkup, um, and they just, you know, they did like the fetal Doppler, and then they did like this ultrasound machine, and they couldn't find her heartbeat, and so they just checked. They said, let's just do like the real ultrasound, and then that's when they confirmed that she didn't have a heartbeat.
Mhm. Wow. Wow. I'm so sorry for you guys' loss. Did did you have any sort of bleeding? What were the telltale signs that something was going on? Did you have pain?
I actually at like 8 weeks or 8 to 9
Mhm.
weeks, I had a bad hemorrhage. Um, I thought I was having a miscarriage. Um,
Mm.
but I went to my IVF doctor because I haven't graduated yet, and when I was 8 weeks, I like stood up from my kitchen table and I just like bled like really bad, like it was
Wow.
blood. So I called my IVF doctor, and he saw me that same like 20 minutes later. Like he's across the street from me, so I like ran across the street with my husband, and they said that she still had a heartbeat, everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, they said, and I had a hematoma, like the hemorrhaging was like a hematoma. It was like
Yeah.
this. It was like so
Mm-hmm.
tiny, this tiny. And then, I graduated and I went to my OB for like, I think it was 12 weeks. And I had
Mm-hmm.
like that same exact day, I had another hemorrhaging, massive hemorrhaging
Mm.
that same day. And when I had my ultrasound, the like hematoma took up like most of my
Most of the
uterus.
space. Wow.
Hmm. And then the doctor, that OB, said that I was probably going to have a miscarriage pretty soon, that I was actually having a miscarriage. And that was a centimeter dilated and all this stuff. Um, and then it wasn't, I actually didn't even have a miscarriage until like when I was 20 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Was she
So,
still
yeah.
measuring? Was she measuring at 20, or was she measuring possibly from weeks ahead? And it just took a while for things to escalate, so to speak.
No, so the last time I actually saw her, like, had an ultrasound was Cinco de Mayo of
Oh.
2021. That's how I remember it. I was at MFM appointment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's when they did like the whole anatomy scan. And
Okay.
they said, just to keep monitoring. I bled like throughout my whole entire pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably was another reason too
Okay.
why she passed, was because of the hemorrhaging.
Wow. Wow. When did you start school for social work? When I want to go back to that too. What point did you start going to school for social work to be get to move into the fast tracking of becoming a therapist? Was it before you got pregnant? Had you already started school?
No, for years I've been telling myself, like, girl, go back to school,
Mm-hmm.
go get your degree. I've been wanting to be a therapist for a long time, but it took like, I guess it took all of this to happen.
Mm.
I'm in my third semester. I started school sometime like in the middle of last year.
Okay. 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 So you would say that more so your experience with your loss and then having the infertility diagnosis kind of led you into pursuing it more passionately, and really just going for it, and saying this is the time. Now is the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, my therapist, it was my second therapist that really sort of was like kind of encouraging me to go. And I was like, but I can't afford it. And that's the reason why I didn't go that whole entire time, because I couldn't afford it. A master's program, it's a lot of money. You don't get no grants, no financial help, nothing like that. And so
Right.
I was finally like, I just can't keep like putting that on hold. Like it's something that I want to do, and like I'm never gonna have the money, never. And
Hmm.
so like I don't want to stop that from me not doing what I want to do.
Hmm. I understand. Understand completely. It definitely is expensive as hell. And I
Hmm.
know that not for personal reasons, but for watching other people do it in my family and friends and stuff. And it's a hell of a cost here in the U.S. to go to school for higher education, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that you decided to do it. And at what point in your studies did you decide that you wanted to start hosting your own online events in support of, but not a support group? We're going to make that clear, okay, y'all? It's not a support group, but Jaleesa hosts virtual events periodically for lost moms and those in the fertility community. So, when did that idea strike for you?
So I was talking to another lost mom, and she was basically asking like, what's missing from this community? And I sort of thought like, I've used this sort of
Mm-hmm.
platform before where a lot of it's like entrepreneur women come together. And so I thought like, well, like, there's a lot of mothers that are grieving who aren't receiving the support that they have been looking for, or they didn't think that they would receive after their loss. And so I thought,
Mhm.
well, this is like the perfect platform so I could have a lot of moms come together, get that connection, and be able to talk about their babies without any judgment. Um, and because I didn't receive support after my daughter passed, I really wanted to get all of these women together and give them like what I didn't have.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think it was earlier this year where I implemented it, and the events are every other month. Um,
Mhm.
and we get about 80, like 75 to 80 women register. Um, and it's free. So I also wanted to make it beneficial for literally
Yeah.
everyone. It doesn't matter, like I wanted to make it as diverse as possible. And so with that, I do everything on my own. I set everything up, and tomorrow we're actually having our fourth um, event. And we always have a speaker, and each speaker
Mhm.
talks about a topic that's very beneficial for grief. Like it has anything to do within loss, within grief. Um, and it's just like a place where you find guidance and you find support. And we also have like this section where it's almost like a speed dating, where you can meet one on one with a mom, talk for a few
Mhm.
minutes, go to the next person, talk for a few minutes, and just keep going. Or you have the option of just being in the session where you can learn about, like tomorrow we're talking about toxic positivity.
Mm.
And so you can sit there and talk about that. And then, we also do like a group session if you're
Mhm.
interested, at the end of it.
Wonderful.
So yeah, it's
Mhm.
just like a bunch of little things implemented in one platform. And I just really just wanted to make sure that there are moms out there that know that they're not alone, and we provide this like confidential, like beautiful space for you to, feel comfortable.
Mhm. I love that. What's the name of your support event?
So it's called the Lost Mama Connection event, and it's virtual, and it's always
Wonderful.
7 p.m. Eastern time. So I know it's
Okay.
like not the perfect time because I have I talk to a lot of moms that live in the UK, Europe, and stuff, and it's like 3
Mhm.
a.m. for them, and I
Yeah.
feel so
Yeah.
bad, but
Oh yeah.
the best I
Yeah.
can do.
Right. Exactly. What would you tell a new lost mom or newly diagnosed woman or male or by non-binary in the infertility community if they were like, girl, how do you do it? What is a word
I'm
that
gonna
you
tell
have for
them
me?
I don't. No, I'm just kidding. For some reason, I've been focusing on like sort of speaking about how grief really changes throughout time. Grief has many faces, it has many
Mm,
different layers to it, and your grief is going to be, the worst, the very worst day one. And I feel like it's you do what you want with your grief, and you will learn so much about yourself throughout the years. And I feel like it's important to be gracious with yourself because not every day is going to feel the same. And like myself, I judge myself for crying every single day, for like not getting over it, which you're not going to get over it. It's just you're going to learn how to manage it, how to cope with it, and how to guide yourself through this life after loss, because it's just going to be hard. But if you have that support and this community provides so much support, I just think you're not alone. And I think that's important
mhm.
to know that you're not alone in this.
Absolutely. I concur and I agree. And that's 100 and that's facts. It's all the things. Okay. Guys, you're not freaking alone in any of this or any other part of your life for that matter, which we do find, I'm sure, in your support events. And then things that I have noticed as well talking to people is that once you start opening up about one thing, then we get into conversations about all these other aspects of our lives that kind of just
Mhm.
intertwine with what we're going through, especially when you're speaking about grief and the layers of it. And it's so right. There's so many layers to it. And when you think you've no longer been triggered by one thing, something else comes along and it just seems like you're back 5 steps. And so
Mhm. Yeah.
definitely check in with Julissa and her support events and follow her online. So now I will ask you, what's your IG handle so we can follow you online and keep up to date when you have your events on a monthly basis?
So my Instagram is at Rainbow Manifestations with the S at the end, and I always leave the registration link in my bio.
Wonderful. Very easy, very simple, y'all. Okay. Don't be freaking lazy. Go and follow Julissa if you're not already online. I'm sure we have some friends that listen that already follow you. And then you guys can just tap the bio, register, get connected, get the support and help that you need. And I'm sure as Julissa continues in her master's studies of social work and so that she can become a therapist, she'll have plenty more resources for you guys. And if she can't do it herself, she knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. Thank you, Julissa. I know it's
Oh,
late. I
thank
know
you.
you're tired and you have much to do in the next coming days, but I appreciate you for sharing this vulnerable time in your life and past with the loss of your baby girl. And so, yeah, I just appreciate you for giving us your time this evening, dear.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love talking about my daughter, so I don't mind.
Well, I'm glad that I got you on a good day where you weren't feeling too heavy. I'm always nervous. You guys think you're nervous. I get nervous having to talk to you guys, and I know you're still in the midst of all of this stuff and the emotional turmoil of your grief and frustrations with infertility. And just it just fucking sucks. Okay, let's just be honest about it. So I definitely don't take it for granted when you guys give me your time. I'm trying to be serious, but it's not working.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I know.
Julissa. And thank you, friends. Y'all know where to find me on the gram and Fertility and Me podcast for fertility related content. Staying up to date with podcast episodes as well as any events that I host as well locally in the DMV. And then also follow on or subscribe on the TTC, okay? YouTube, that is at Infertility and Me podcast. Until next time, friends, peace and blessings. Hey, friend, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Infertility and Me podcast. You can connect with me and other members in the community on Instagram at Infertility and Me podcast and or watch on YouTube at Infertility and Me podcast. You can also email me at infertilityandme@outlook.com for a chance to record and help in the stigmas surrounding infertility so that we can reach more friends who may be silently suffering. Until next time.